This is the first talk of the July 94 7-day retreat in Springwater. We will talk about listening. How does one listen to a talk like this? And what is our listening to each other? Are there different kinds of listening? And we will talk about authority. Authority that we invest in each other. And does that affect our listening? Is there authority vested in sitting here at this place with a microphone talking to people? Or even if there isn't, is one investing it in listening, in thinking, in imagining? And does that affect the listening? And maybe we will ask what our relationship is with each other. If it is not one of authority, of image, of remembrance and wanting, how are we related to each other? Not just you and me, but how am I related to the clerk in the store, to my husband, one's wife, children, our boss, the person who works for us. So coming back to listening, you can't come back to it. It's fresh this moment, listening freshly. The sound of the plane, sound of people moving, sound of breathing, birds singing. Sound of heartbeat, caw, caw, caw. And the words that are being spoken right now, how is one listening? Is there in this listening an immediacy, a nowness, here-ness? Immediacy meaning no mediation, no interpretation of what is being heard. Or is all of our listening, or most of our listening, fed through interpretation, through knowledge, through remembrance? I know this is a plane. One may even in imagination, and if one's listening is acute in this respect, hear the direction and imagine it's flying to Boston or to New York. And in listening to the words that are spoken, is there interpretation going on? We don't notice it until there's a very acute awareness, insight. We don't notice most of the time that something has already been interpreted, because it's so automatic, so rooted in our system of perception, in our nervous system, our memory. And this is where the sense impressions conduct through centers of knowledge and interpretation and memory. That's why it's so difficult, if not impossible, to get two witnesses to say the same thing, even if they were in the same location at the same time. We all see and hear different things according to how we are programmed to see and not to see, to hear and not to hear. Can we become aware of this? Of the distortions in perception? Or at least be wary of it. Not insist that what one hears is what the person said, but be open to what goes on in this organism. The wanting and the fearing, we talked about it last night. If I want to hear something very anxiously, very eagerly, that anxiousness or that eagerness to hear something affects the listening. May turn the words to fit what is hoped for to hear, or may block out what one is afraid of hearing. Not to believe what is being said, because one has projected authority on the person who is giving the talk, but to put it all into one question or many questions. How am I listening right now? Do I want to hear something? Do I want confirmation in my opinions, in what I already know and believe? Want this person to confirm it, to affirm it? Am I afraid of hearing certain things? Is there some floating fear, anxiety? People tell me this, there's always some anxiety there. That anxiety affects our listening. Not hearing or distorting or blocking out altogether what may upset this organism through association, through memory, old experiences that were upsetting or frightening, or ideas that are frightening. So how clearly can we listen to each other, to what is being said? Can't happen without being sensitively aware of what goes on in this organism at the same time. The wanting and the fearing. The accepting and rejecting. Or the thoughts are so active about something else, what's going on at home on a Sunday morning, or where I could be instead of sitting in this room, listening to someone. Remembrances of what happened yesterday or a year ago, or what will or may happen in the future, and the involvement that goes with thinking and dreaming. The whole physical organism is engaged with every thought, every picture in the mind. Engages the physical organism in sensations and emotions, feelings, which prevent listening to what's happening this instant. And one only becomes aware of it when there is awakening from the dream or the fantasy or the thinking. An instant of awakening and realizing, I missed what was said in the last 5 minutes, or whatever length, one may not be able to judge it. Or the organism may be tired. People mention this to me a lot at the beginning of retreat, sometimes for the first 3 days, sometimes just for 1 day. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. But it's very common to be very tired the first 3 days of a retreat. Maybe one has worked so hectically, so hard, so over-demanded. Some persons have told me this already. I do too much. Everybody gives me work. One works fast and people give one more work. The tensions and stresses at the office, in the family, at home. All the things one has to tend to if one has a job and then comes home, needs to do things there with the kids, the house, the cleaning. So, arriving at a retreat with no demands other than an hour or so of work, the organism starts conking out, tired, exhausted. The stimulation to keep it going in the daily activities is gone. So the energies that go with the stimulation of daily activities or entertainments or things one eats and drinks and smokes or coffee, if they are not there, then the body feels sometimes an overwhelming tiredness. And when tired from not having slept, some people mentioned to me, somebody's snoring in the room, didn't sleep, the new bed, a different location, different place, different air, and didn't sleep much, then it's also difficult to pay attention. It's rather maybe a drowsy state. Hearing something here or there, but drowsing a lot. I'm not saying it has to be this way. One may be tired and still be stimulated to listen. But over the years, I've recently questioned, people have told me, your talks start getting better on day 4 and 5 or 6. I used to believe it. But I don't evaluate the talks very much, but with this input, paying a little bit more attention, I wonder whether it's not that one pays more attention on day 4, 5, and 6. And therefore it makes more sense. It is more looking while listening. The energy is there, has built up to investigate what is being said. And the moment there is investigation and discovery, then there's energy and interest. So there are maybe many, many more obstacles to pure listening that could be listed. Each one can question and discover for herself, himself. Although the explanations go just so far, so one has explained why one hasn't listened. But does one see it? See a dream and the waking up. That's actually when the dream becomes truly visible, is when there's waking up from it and seeing it as a dream. And at this moment, is there simple, immediate listening because there's waking up from the dream and the birds are singing and cool air is sweeping through the doors. Sounds of the heartbeat and of breathing. Is that there instantly, or upon waking up from a dream, what happens? Either what we said, the immediacy of being here, letting go of the dream, it's waking up time now, and listening time. Or does the mind hang on to the dream? Maybe it was a pleasant dream and the satisfactions that have mobilized the body to feeling pleasant, comfortable, not wanting to let go of that, wanting more dream, and the instant of attention is gone. By wanting more pleasure through fantasizing or dreaming. When it sounds as though I was judging it as being bad, I'm looking at it. And that is really the spirit of a retreat and a series of retreat talks. To bring to light, to bring into awareness, not to judge, not to find fault, but the programmed, instantaneous reaction of human beings like you and me is not to stay with awareness, but to blame and find fault with or hang on to what has been discovered in a moment of waking up, a moment of coming to, a moment of instantaneous here-ness, now-ness, with simply birds singing and air streaming, breath flowing, sounds of bodies moving. That's all. The dream is gone, or is it brought back or maintained through thought continuing with what was pleasant or interesting or painful? An amazing phenomenon. To continue the fantasizing, to continue the dreaming, even though there are moments of waking up to it. It may not be continuation of the dreaming with its contents often as inability to quite keep it going again or start it over. But in a meditation retreat like this, and if one has done sitting before, maybe one has a meditation practice, there may now come at the moment of awakening, coming to, there now may come a barrage of reprimands. Why did I dream again? I should stick to my practice. How can I be more concentrated? Why after all these years do I still lose it? I'm just improvising. Everyone can listen to themselves. It's something along that line. Blaming oneself for what one realizes has been going on in the mind. Maybe there's realization that there was a judgment. Having judged somebody, thought about somebody and judging him or her. Coming to, waking up to the fact that this has been taking place, and then blaming oneself for doing it, which is also a continuation of thinking and the end of awareness, which was there for a split second. It's not easy to just be here with nothing to do, with the reactiveness that is deeply and superficially programmed all over this organism, not just into the brain, but the whole body is reactive from past experiences. To watch reactiveness, not just waking up from dream or thought, but to be interested in what follows. Because the question does come up all the time, why so little awareness? Why so much reactiveness? Why do I always think so much, most of the time? Why is there so little attention? And is that just a question in form, an exclamation of despair, and takes the form of a question? Why am I so distracted? Why so little awareness? Is that exclamation of, again, self-reprimand or despair, discouragement? Or can it turn into a real question? Not just a reactive exclamation, but where did the attention go? Not with blame, not with judgment, but with a fresh curiosity, a yearning to find out, to discover what is going on in this human mind and body from moment to moment. And if the question is alive, with interest to find out, then maybe at one time or another, when there's waking up from a dream or from a train of thought, maybe they'll be noticing how quickly the reactiveness arises and listening to that without judgment. And so learning is taking place. It's a shift from discouragement about oneself or others to learning about ourselves and others. It's a deep qualitative shift from self-blame to self-discovery, or at least the interest to discover more about this mind, which, even though we are raised to believe that we are in control of ourselves, at first the parents were in control and now we're told we're in control, we have to take responsibility. But this control and responsibility just amounts to repeating the programmed injunctions, demands of the parents, or characterizations of us. We take it over, internalize it. The body just takes it as though it was what needed to be done, or what is so, what is the truth. And then starting to sit quietly, one notices to one's amazement or dismay that there is no control over thoughts. They seem to run wild. And then the desire to have some control mechanism to hold it all in check, or maybe even to eliminate thoughts. Get rid of them. So, who is in control? Is there a controller? Or is that itself a thought? The thought, I am in control. The conviction is a thought. Not to believe what is being said, but to question it for oneself. Maybe there is a deep conviction that I am in control. And if I am in control, I am also the judge of what I see needs to be controlled, the good and the bad. This is how our life proceeds in division and conflict with ourselves and each other. So what is this judging and trying to control? The blaming oneself and others. For what? For what turns out in clear observation to be going on spontaneously, reactively, due to past programs. Maybe of the last 10 minutes, a new program has been put in place. So how does one listen to all of what has been said? And whatever has been heard, including the airplane. How do we listen right now? Not how, can I just be listening? Sometimes in very intense listening, there's hardly any breathing because the whole organism is all ears. Can that also be noticed without needing to change anything, just attending to what's there in all simplicity, without praise or blame? listening to the praising internally and to the blaming internally, without blaming that. It's all conditioning, revealing itself in quiet observation, together with crows cawing and heart beating, body sensing. In what has been said this morning so far, or last night at our opening talk, is there authority? Is one hearing it that way? Actually, the brain is programmed to hear in terms of authority. Even if one says, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, the brain may have already registered it this way, maybe through the intensity of saying something. It is heard as an injunction. This is what should be done, and not the opposite. There should be no judging, is what is heard when we talk about judging, discovering constant judging. Is the brain hearing it in terms of, I shouldn't be judging, this is wrong in a place like this or in meditation? We have learned to listen to what is projected as authority in very categorized ways, very special ways. Always hearing in opposites. What is said is the right thing, and the opposite, even if it isn't mentioned, is instantly assumed to be the wrong thing. And in looking at oneself, if there is judgment, therefore one is wrong. If there is inattention, therefore one is wrong, should change it. And that is listening as though what was said was authority speaking about what is right and wrong. Are we listening this way? Very worthwhile examining, because the more that our ways and our categories of listening and thinking are exposed, become revealed, the freer we are to listen correctly, accurately, or at least not believe or insist we know what we heard, because we were not aware of judging, of concluding right and wrong. So, does it help to say that what is talked about here is not talked about in order to lay down rights and wrongs, ways of behaving? But to open up or invite for inspection, to invite to look for oneself and how we listen. That's what we talked about this morning. Not what is right listening and wrong listening, but how do we listen? And do we invest the person who is talking with authority? Have an image of her? Of what she is? Is it there in the mind? Is that idea there? no use protesting that I'm not an authority. It only gets us into argument. I used to do that years ago. Just put out as clearly as possible what has been discovered and what is seen to be so, for everyone and anyone to examine, including myself. Because I can be mistaken or see falsely in a distorted way, just like anyone else. Same programming prevails in all organisms, even though their contents vary. Their particular shapes and forms vary. But programmed we all are, conditioned we all are, like a formatted disk. So, what is said here is an invitation to look for oneself, not a positing of principles, to be learned, to be remembered, to be repeated. Sometimes one discovers when hearing me say, I'm not an authority, I'm not putting down what is so, not positing anything, just inviting questioning. Someone may be disappointed. One has come here maybe to get the truth, to hear it pronounced by someone else. Is that there? Disappointment? Does one want to follow somebody? Want somebody to take the lead? To tell us what to do, what not to do, how to practice, what to practice? If that is so, can it be seen right now, aired out as it were? There's lots of fresh air in this room to air out anything that comes up. Enough light and air to look and listen freshly. What is going on inside us and around us. So after saying all of this, what is our relationship with each other? Right now, this morning, how are we related to each other? Through imagery, I have ideas about what you are and relate to those. You have ideas of what I am and you relate to me according to these ideas and images. Is that how we're related? Not just you and me, but related to each other? Through ideas about someone, lodged as an image in the mind, and then in thinking of that person or addressing that person, the image jumps up to mind, and this is what we're relating to. How he was, how she is, how she has been. Firmly recorded, stored in memory. It's amazing how a memory image can masquerade for a real person, and we don't see it. Because it's always been like this. Because probably from the very beginning, the newborn baby, infant, records pictures of mother and father and well-meaning expressions and strong or angry expressions are recorded. and the behavior modifies accordingly. This is an inbuilt mechanism in the brain to protect the organism from danger and to draw it toward what is helpful to it, nourishing, non-dangerous. But as it keeps going, it becomes a danger in itself, because we don't see ourselves and each other freshly, or more inclusively, openly, allowing for changes to take place, which do. Personality and body change all the time, one way or another. But the image fixates, so we can't be aware of other aspects of ourselves and each other, or changed aspects. A retreat is a marvelous time to watch image making, because we know so little about each other here. Of course, some people are very good friends from many years or have come together as friends. Others have never met each other, never seen each other. And watch how the mind builds up imagery about other people, those who one likes, those who one doesn't like, not according to much evidence. The picture is strong in the mind. Maybe the picture of who this person reminds me of, who is like that. Constantly sort of trying to figure out, characterize for reaction, to react to. And often after a retreat, people report, usually quite humorously, how different the person is from what one had imagined. Sometimes imagining a person is madly in love with one. Or whatever all the mind builds up about another person, hating someone. May not even need the end of retreat, sometimes right in the middle of a retreat, right in the midst of it. Imagery breaks down, something is free to look, and usually with a freedom of no image binding, there comes some love and affection for everyone. People who one had characterized before as this and that and reacted to favorably or disfavorably. Suddenly, when the mind is free of image making, even just for a moment, there wells up a goodwill toward everyone. I'm not saying this is how we should be related. Obviously, it would be nice if there was just, on the part of all human beings, goodwill toward each other. It sounds rather like utopia, doesn't it? I'm just saying what can happen to a human being, but not to strive for the goodwill, but to see ill will when it is there, not deny it or rationalize it. But to see it, to be aware of it, that's enough. Awareness for moment to moment of what is happening in this body, mind, and all around us has its own inbuilt intelligence. We don't have to do anything about it. Just to learn, to see, to discover, and not be driven by our programmed desire to do something about ourselves and each other and our environment. have a week of letting be, leaving alone what comes freshly into awareness. Let it be, leave it alone. The doer taking a rest and allowing observation without doing. Is that possible? The rustling of leaves and branches in the wind and cawing of crows. It's there. What needs to be done about it? The organism breathing, it's there. Nothing need to be done about it. It happens on its own. All the intricate mechanisms of this body we call our own, they're happening. We're not aware of it. We can't be aware of most of them. Happen on such subtle levels. No one controlling it. It's going on, heart beating, oxygen carrying, digestion, metabolism, immune system functioning. So can the thoughts and emotions also be left alone and just given all the space they need to be seen and felt, without either squelching or attaching? If attaching is going on or squelching, can it also come to light? There's enough space for everything to be seen, felt, heard, and left alone in an awareness that has wisdom without knowing. We will end here for today.